The sun was warm against Marcus's skin as he stepped out of his car, his arms weighed down with the first box of belongings that symbolized a new chapter in his life. The neighborhood looked like a dream come true, neat lawns, trimmed hedges, the faint scent of freshly cut grass hanging in the air. He paused for a moment, breathing it all and letting the joy swell in his chest. This house was supposed to be the place where peace and stability would finally replace years of restless moving. He imagined evenings on the porch, laughter spilling out of the windows, and mornings filled with calm routines instead of chaos. But before he could reach the front door, a sharp voice cut through the air like a knife. "You cannot move in here without my approval." The words froze Marcus mid-step. He turned slowly, expecting perhaps a joke or some kind of mistake. Standing on the sidewalk was a woman with a stiff posture, arms folded across her chest, eyes narrowing behind oversized sunglasses. Her hair was cropped in a severe blonde bob, and her mouth was twisted into a smirk that carried no trace of warmth. Marcus blinked, taken aback. "Excuse me." She tapped a clipboard against her palm with deliberate rhythm, as if the sound itself were meant to intimidate. "I said you cannot move into this neighborhood until I approve it. I am the head of the HOA, and nothing happens here without my signature." A laugh slipped from Marcus, though it was short and nervous. Surely this was a misunderstanding. "That is not how this works, ma'am. I bought this house. I signed the papers. It is mine." The woman stepped closer, closing the distance with predatory confidence. "People think ownership means freedom, but in this neighborhood, freedom comes after compliance. I decide what is acceptable here." The weight of the box of Marcus's arm seemed heavier as frustration tightened in his chest. "Look, I am just trying to move into my home. I do not want any trouble." She tilted her head like a hawk circling prey. "Then you should understand me clearly. If you unload a single box before I approve it, you will be fined. Every day you resist, the fines will grow. And do not test me. I always win." Marcus's pulse quickened. The joy of arrival drained from him, replaced by disbelief and a simmering anger. He forced himself to breathe, slowly refusing to let her see him break. "You cannot stop me from moving into my own house. That is harassment." Her lips curled into a sneer. "Call it whatever you like. The board will always side with me. People like you never last in this neighborhood." The sting of those words burned deeper than the threat itself. Her tone was dripping with something beyond arrogance, something personal, something meant to belittle him at the core of who he was. For a moment the temptation to snap back surged hot and fierce, but Marcus bit it down. She wanted him rattled. She wanted him loud and reckless. He would not give her that satisfaction. Instead, he shifted the box against his hip, squared his shoulders, and met her gaze with steady eyes. "I am not going anywhere." For the first time, her smirk faltered, though only for a breath. She snapped her clipboard shut, with a sharp clap turned on her heel, and strode off muttering about rules and violations. Marcus stood frozen, on the walkway, his heart pounding. The bright image of his dream home shimmered like a mirage, now clouded by a shadow he had not seen coming. He had expected challenges like unpacking bills, setting up utilities, maybe even a leaky faucet. He had not expected to face a woman who claimed the power to dictate whether he belonged. The air seemed heavier now, the cheerful hum of cicadas replaced by the echo of her threat replaying in his head. He set the box down on the porch slowly, the wood creaking under the weight. His hands trembled not from fear, but from the collision of anger and disbelief. He looked at the house again, its windows gleaming in the sun, as if silently urging him to stand his ground. This was not just a house anymore. It was a battleground. And the woman who had tried to strip him of his joy would not stop until she had broken him or until he fought back. Marcus whispered under his breath a promise to himself. If she wanted a war, she was going to get one. And with that, he picked up the box again, his jaw set, his eyes cold. The conflict had begun, and neither of them knew just how far it was about to go. The next morning began with the sharp click of a camera shutter. Marcus pulled back the blinds to see the same woman from yesterday standing on the sidewalk, holding her phone up like a weapon, snapping pictures of his moving truck. Her posture was stiff, her expression sour, as if every box being unloaded was a personal offense. He stepped outside, determined to stay calm. "Good morning," he said evenly, though the weight of irritation pressed against his throat. She lowered her phone only long enough to smile with venom. Violation number 1. That truck has been parked for more than the allowed time. Expect a notice. Marcus shook his head. The sale is finalized. I live here. You cannot invent violations. But she was already scribbling on her clipboard, muttering under her breath, as if cataloging crimes. Throughout the day, she prowled like a shadow, circling the driveway, shouting instructions at his friends who came to help him carry furniture. She snapped at one of them for resting a chair on the lawn. She demanded another close the truck door between trips. The joy of moving was smothered by her constant presence. What should have been laughter and celebration felt like a military operation under surveillance. By evening, Marcus found a slip of paper tucked under his front door. It was an official-looking notice with bold letters at the top reading Homeowner Violation Report. It listed absurd infractions, grass too long window coverings, not uniform parking truck out of alignment. None of it was real. None of it had authority. Yet the message was clear. She wanted to make him believe she controlled everything. The next day, it escalated further. She cornered him in front of 2 neighbors as he unloaded the last box. He is already breaking rules, she declared, her voice loud enough to carry down the street. This is what happens when people think they can ignore our standards. The neighbors exchanged uneasy glances but said nothing. Their silence stung Marcus more than her words. It was as if the entire block had agreed to let her reign unchecked. He forced a steady voice. I have done nothing wrong, and you are not on the board. Her laugh rang sharp. Do you think anyone will believe you? I run this neighborhood. The board trusts me. You will learn fast, or you will leave. The smugness in her tone hit like a slap. Marcus felt the heat rise in his chest, but instead of exploding, he swallowed it down. Rage would not defeat her. He realized then she thrived on confrontation. She wanted him to lose his temper, so she could paint him as the problem. That night, a pounding rattled his front door. Marcus jolted awake, heart thundering. He checked the peephole, and there she was standing with her clipboard in hand, banging, as if she had the right to summon him. Open up, she barked. You are out of compliance. I need to speak with you now. Marcus backed away from the door, his fists clenched. He let her pound a few more times before she stormed off, muttering threats. He did not sleep after that. He sat in the dark, staring at the shadows crawling along the walls, realizing that if he allowed her to keep dictating his life, his dream home would become a cage. The following morning, he made a decision. Instead of reacting, he would observe. He bought a set of cameras, small and discreet, mounting them along the porch and driveway. Every time she approached his property, he made sure the red light blinked, silently recording. When she shouted at him from the curb, he pressed record on his phone. When she slipped another false violation notice under his door, he photographed it before picking it up. It became a routine. She screamed. He documented. She lied. He saved evidence. Slowly his fear melted into focus. The more she tried to break him, the clearer her pattern became, and the stronger his case grew. One afternoon, as he mowed the lawn, she appeared again, her voice slicing to the steady hum of the machine. Your grass is uneven. Another violation. Marcus killed the motor and looked at her with a calm that unsettled her. Thank you for your concern, he said evenly. Have a good day. Her eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering in them as if she sensed something shifting. She turned and marched away, scribbling furiously on her clipboard. That night, Marcus opened his laptop and began compiling the evidence into folders. Videos of her pounding on his door, audio clips of her yelling, photos of fake notices, even the recording of her saying she ran the neighborhood, though she had no official position. The more he gathered, the more he realized he was no longer the victim of her control. He was building a case. When he finished organizing the files, he leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. He knew this was only the beginning, but for the first time since moving in, he felt a spark of control return. She wanted him cornered, but she had given him every tool to expose her. Marcus whispered into the quiet house of promise, meant only for himself. You think you own this place, but soon everyone will see the truth. And with that, he closed the laptop, his jaw tight, his resolve unshakable. The game had changed. She just did not know it yet. The days that followed turned into a chess match, where every move Marcus made was deliberate, and every misstep Kerren made was preserved in crisp digital clarity. She still stalked the sidewalks with her clipboard and phone, convinced that her intimidation was working, but Marcus no longer felt the same gnawing dread he had felt that first night. Instead, he felt anticipation, because each threat, each false accusation, each invasion of his peace was another piece of evidence clicking neatly into place. The turning point came one evening as Marcus carried groceries from his car. Kerren stormed across the street, her voice already rising before she reached him. "You cannot park in your own driveway overnight. That is against the rules." Marcus placed the bag down, slowly pulling his phone from his pocket, pressing record with casual precision. "Could you repeat that?" Her eyes narrowed at the device, but her pride would not let her back down. "I said it is against the rules. You need to remove your car immediately, or I will fine you." Marcus gave a calm nod. "Thank you for clarifying." She sputtered as if expecting resistance, not quiet acknowledgement. She spun on her heel, marching away, but Marcus already knew the recording was gold. The HOA guidelines he had studied said nothing of such a rule. Her words were not only baseless, but incriminating. Later that week, she escalated again, and this time she crossed a line she could never uncross. Marcus was sitting on the porch sipping coffee when Kerren appeared, without warning, striding up the steps into his space. She jabbed a finger toward him, shouting about unauthorized furniture placement, accusing him of lowering the neighborhood's value. When Marcus stood, she grabbed his arm hard enough to make him wince and hiss, "I told you people like you cannot just do as you please here." The cameras caught everything. Her tone, her grip, the look of entitlement etched into her face. Marcus did not shove her away. He simply pulled free and calmly said, "Thank you for your input, Kerren. Please leave my property." The clip would later become the centerpiece of his plan. That night, he worked late into the small hours, compiling the videos and audio files into a single timeline. He titled folders with precise labels: harassment door, pounding false notices, physical contact. He wrote notes detailing dates, times, and context. He cross-referenced the HOA handbook, highlighting every instance she had invented rules from thin air. Piece by piece, a case emerged that no one could dismiss. Marcus reached out to a few neighbors, quietly asking if they had ever been harassed by Kerren. To his surprise, 2 admitted they had, but had stayed silent out of fear of retaliation. With gentle persistence, he convinced them to write short statements. They were hesitant, but relieved to know someone else was finally standing up to her. The evidence was now more than just his word against hers. It was a mountain, and it was ready to crush her. He decided to take one more step. Using a trim clip from his porch camera, he uploaded a video to a private forum captioned, "HOA, lady claims she owns a block." Within hours, it spread like wildfire, clipped and reposted across platforms. Comments flooded in with outrage and laughter. Strangers mocked her arrogance. Others shared stories of their own HOA nightmares. Kerren had no idea yet that she was becoming infamous beyond her little street. The real stage was set at the next HOA board meeting. Marcus arrived early, carrying a neat binder under his arm, his face calm, but his pulse racing beneath the surface. The meeting room filled with residents buzzing with idle conversation until Kerren entered, strutting as though she owned the place. She spotted Marcus and smirked, confident that she would once again turn the crowd against him. When the board called for new business, Kerren sprang to her feet. "This man is in violation of multiple HOA standards. He has ignored repeated warnings. He has disrespected the integrity of our community. I demand immediate action." Whispers rippled through the room. Marcus remained seated until the board invited him to respond. Then he stood slowly, his movements measured. "With respect, I would like to present evidence." He placed a binder on the table, flipping it open. The first page showed a timeline with dates and descriptions. The next, a printed still image of Kerren pounding on his door at midnight. Gasps echoed through the room. He clicked a small remote, and a screen lit up with video clips. Her voice filled the air, shrill and commanding, as she threatened fines and claimed authority she did not possess. Laughter and murmurs spread as neighbors recognized her all too familiar tone. Kerren's face flushed red. She stammered, waving her hands. "Those are edited. He is twisting things. He is lying." But Marcus kept going unshaken. He played the porch recording where she grabbed his arm. The room fell silent. Then came the witnesses' statements from 2 neighbors who had quietly endured her harassment. Their words joined as evidence, like nails sealing a coffin. Finally, Marcus looked directly at the board. She has no position here. She is not an officer. She has used intimidation and fabricated rules to harass me and others. This is not just inconvenient. This is unlawful. The board members exchanged stunned glances. One leaned into a microphone and said firmly, "Mrs. Williams, you are not an HOA official. You have no authority to enforce anything. This behavior is unacceptable." Kerren's composure cracked. Her smirk dissolved into panic. "You cannot do this to me. I am protecting the community. I am the only one who cares." Her voice rose into a shriek, just as two uniformed officers entered the room. Marcus had filed a harassment complaint days earlier and given them the evidence. They stepped forward without hesitation. "Kerren Williams, you are under arrest for harassment, trespassing, and assault." The sound of handcuffs clicking shut echoed louder than her protests. Phones came up recording as she was led away. Her cries of injustice were drowned beneath the buzz of neighbors whispering, cheering, even laughing. Marcus sat back down, exhaling slowly, his heart pounding, but his face calm. The battle that had begun with a single cruel warning on his doorstep was finally tilting in his favor. And though the sight of Kerren being escorted out brought a wave of satisfaction, he knew this was not the final page. Her downfall had only just begun. The room was still vibrating with the echoes of Kerren's shrill protests as the officers guided her out, her wrists bound, her eyes darting in wild disbelief. Marcus remained seated, his hands clasped together on the table, as neighbors murmured around him, their voices laced with relief and astonishment. For the first time since he had arrived in the neighborhood, the weight of isolation lifted. He was no longer the newcomer under siege. He was the man who had stood up to the tyrant who had haunted them all. One board member cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "Thank you, Mr. Collins. What you brought here tonight was not just important for yourself, but for everyone in this community. We regret that this was allowed to go on as long as it did. You have our support." Marcus inclined his head, offering only a quiet, "Thank you," though inside he felt a flood of vindication. The battle had cost him sleepless nights and endless frustration, but in this moment he knew it had been worth every second. As the meeting ended, neighbors approached one after another. Some shook his hand, others clapped him on the shoulder. A few offered apologies for staying silent when Kerren had harassed them in the past. Their faces carried guilt, but also gratitude. Marcus accepted their words without judgment. He understood fear had kept him quiet, and he also understood that fear had now been broken. When he stepped outside, the night air felt sharper, cleaner. The distant sound of crickets filled the silence where Kerren's voice had once thundered. For the first time, he looked at his house, not as a battleground, but as home. Its windows glowed warmly against the darkness, a reminder of the peace he had fought so hard to reclaim. The following morning, the neighborhood buzzed with the aftermath. Clips from a meeting spread quickly online. Kerren's arrest was replayed from every angle, caught on phones, and posted with mocking captions. She became a spectacle of viral villain, immortalized in short videos that looped endlessly. Marcus scrolled through them quietly in his kitchen, watching strangers laugh at her rant, strangers who had no idea how deeply those rants had scarred him only days earlier. The irony made him smile. The world was now laughing at the woman who had once terrified him. But more important than the laughter was a shift he felt when he stepped outside. Neighbors waved warmly. Some stopped to chat, asking if he needed anything. Children rode their bikes down the street, without fear of being scolded. The entire block seemed to breathe freer, as though chains had been lifted. Kerren had ruled through intimidation for so long that her absence left behind a startling calm. One afternoon, as Marcus sipped coffee on his porch, a man from 2 houses down joined him, leaning on the railing. "You did what none of us had the courage to do," he said with sincerity. "You gave us back our neighborhood." Marcus nodded quietly. "All I did was refuse to be bullied." The man shook his head. "No, you showed us it was possible. That matters." Those words stayed with Marcus. He had not set out to be anyone's hero, but sometimes resistance itself becomes inspiration. His private battle had turned into a public reckoning, and now the entire community carried the reward. Yet the story found its final twist days later, when a meme of Kerren's furious face reached national attention. It was plastered across screens with captions mocking her obsession with rules. Even late-night hosts joked about the infamous HOA lady who tried to stop a man from moving into his own house. Her name became shorthand for entitlement, her downfall a lesson broadcast to millions. Marcus laughed softly when he saw it, though his laughter carried no cruelty, only closure. She had wanted power recognition control. In the end, she received recognition of a different kind, and it would follow her forever. On a quiet evening, Marcus sat on his porch, once again the sun dipping low, casting golden light across the street. The hum of sprinklers filled the air. His home was finally peaceful. He leaned back in his chair, letting the satisfaction wash over him, not the sharp thrill of revenge, but the steady calm of justice fulfilled. He had not just survived Kerren's assault on his peace. He had conquered it. He whispered to himself, almost as if speaking to the shadows she had left behind. Sometimes the loudest bullies fall hardest. Sometimes all it takes is patience and the truth. With that, he lifted his coffee cup, savoring the quiet confidence that came with victory. He had come here searching for a home, and now he had found something more. He had found belonging, respect, and a community unshackled. The war was over the house, was as the peace was real. And Kerren's reign of fear ended not with triumph, but with humiliation that would echo far beyond the gates of their neighborhood.